Part 17. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 161. Xianflan is a madman. If you can survive in his hands, it will definitely allow us to obtain more information about him. This will be beneficial to both of us who want to kill him, Clark said with a smile. If possible, I don't want to ruin a top fighter just like that. There are fewer and fewer people in this world who are worthy of my attention. Garen remained silent. You haven't thought about it yet. Clark's sword tip fell to the ground, and white smoke suddenly erupted. Moreover, I accidentally mastered a piece of information. He paused and lowered his voice. You seem to have joined a secret organization. Are you looking for something? He said slightly doubtfully. Garen's face darkened. You know too much. Boom. He disappeared instantly, and there was a rumble in the whole yard. A large pit exploded in the ground, and countless gravels flew away. Bang. Clark's expression changed wildly, and countless red sand-like light spots suddenly lit up in front of him, which were the afterimages of countless sword tips drawn with a red sword. The red dot and a black shadow collided violently, making a terrifying bombardment sound. Clark blocked the bombardment with his whole body, but he only felt his arms numb, and he was actually shocked to the point of numbness. A rumble and a loud noise came from the front. Shoot! Clark roared in horror. He's too fast. The gunners of the two hunting teams also panicked. Didn't I say he was very slow? How could he be so fast? Damn it! They only saw a black and gray shadow crashing into Clark continuously, and the terrifying crashes made everyone's feet numb, and the ground seemed to be shaking. Clark's body was covered with red dots of light, and he was desperately trying to defend himself. He had no time to make any other moves. From the first time he was knocked out, he seemed to be the only one in the yard. A black and gray figure kept surrounding him and bombarded him wildly. Hongsha, the strongest defensive sword secretly taught by the Red Sand Sword, was actually completely defeated. Shoot! Shoot! Clark was about to collapse. He swung his sword with both arms again and again, with less force every time. He is a top fighter who has perfected his speed and strength. Garen is not faster than him, but he can actually hit the tip of the sword with his fist. Every time he was hit, the opponent acted as if nothing had happened, but he was itching all over, and it was getting harder and harder to maintain his strength. If he fails to catch it once, he will die. There seemed to be an inexplicable fear growing in my heart. Clark used all his strength like never before. With his powerful dynamic vision, he could clearly see Garen rushing over again and again, punching, charging, and punching. With only 2 movements, Garen's expression was indifferent, and he looked at himself as if he were looking at a dead person. It seems that nothing in the world can move him. Every time he stepped on the ground, a large crater would explode, like a cannonball exploding, with countless gravel and soil flying everywhere. Lassita and Angela, another member of the Demon Elephant Gate, could only push away in shock. If they were even slightly closer, they would be injured by the gravel. At this time, a huge piece of land was vacated in the center of the courtyard. Clark stood alone in the middle, swinging his sword desperately, like a red cocoon. A gray and black ribbon was constantly fluttering around him, which was the link left by the afterimage of Garen's rapid movement. Bang! Finally, Clark was hit by a palm on the waist, and his whole body flew away. It crashed into the rockery of the pool in the yard. The entire gray stone rockery was smashed open, and a cloud of dust rose up. Clark was lying on a pile of rocks holding his sword, coughing loudly, and blood was slowly flowing out of his eyes, ears, and nose. Bang bang! 2 small gunshots finally sounded at the same time. Clang! 2 sparks exploded from Garen's chest, and there were 2 big holes in his suit. He casually tore off his suit, and there were actually 2 blood holes in the skin on his chest, and a long purple-black bullet was inserted halfway into the skin. Injured, his chest muscles twisted, and the 2 bullets were automatically squeezed out of his body, falling to the ground and rolling away. It's worthy of a reward for being able to actually hurt me. A sinister smile slowly appeared on Garen's face. Step down. With a bang, a large piece of gravel jumped up on the ground, and a whip leg swept across it. A large amount of gravel flew out like cannonballs, and a large number of subordinates of the Black Label Society of the Demon Elephant Gate fell down with a muffled sound. The 2 hunting team gunners nimbly avoided the gravel, raised their guns and were about to shoot. Roar! A huge elephant roar burst out from Garen's mouth, causing the gravel on the ground in the entire courtyard to jump. The huge and terrifying sound waves rushed towards the 2 of them. The muscles of the 2 gunmen were numb, their hands suddenly shook, and the muzzles of their guns were raised. Bang bang! 2 bullets missed directly. Both of them had a look of fear on their faces. Retreat! There were 2 small popping sounds, and the 2 hunters rolled on the spot, avoiding the 2 pieces of gravel flying behind them, and fired 2 blind shots with their backhands. The slap made Garen's wrist flicker and tilt slightly. Me! Clark shouted. The 2 hunters immediately separated, each aiming at Garen from different directions. At the same time, Clark and boxing champion Leo jumped towards Garen. Angela gritted her teeth and shook out 2 cold stars in her hand, shooting directly at Garen's vest. Boom! The 2 rockets were fired at an unknown moment, trailing long white smoke from diagonally upward toward Garen. In an instant, enemies were attacking from all directions. Somehow, surrounded by enemies, Garen suddenly recalled what Ansara said at the cliff. You are just like him back then, and Shailogo seemed to be recalling the past memories. Back when Palasha had not yet become a boxing saint, he was just like you. He was invincible among the younger generation. Even compared with the older generation of fighters, he was not far behind. It's a pity. What's a pity? Garen stared at him calmly. It's a pity that you don't have his grandeur. Grand and majestic, Garen seemed to recall something. He raised his head and looked at the sky. The starry sky at night is dotted with stars, and a majestic and vast feeling rushes towards you. Invincible, invincible, he murmured. Boom! The rocket shells exploded loudly, and a large number of bullets hit Garen's position from all directions. The dense dust, soil, and gravel were blown up. For a moment no one could see anything clearly. Clark and boxing champion Leo stood there. They were originally just trying to prevent Garen from dodging, but the strange thing was that Garen didn't dodge. Dust slowly fell. Rosita stood far behind Angela, suddenly covering her mouth with her hands, looking at the scene in the center in disbelief. Clark and Leo stood on the left and right, more than 10 meters away from the explosion point, and the pupils in their eyes suddenly shrank. The smoke dispersed, and a large pit with a diameter of several meters appeared on the ground where Garen was standing. However, Garen stood strangely on the edge of the pit, without any damage on his body. He actually avoided the core explosion range at that moment, and the remaining explosion power did no harm to him at all. After this battle, I will challenge Palasha. Garen finished his words and disappeared from the spot. At the same time, a black shadow flashed in front of Clark, and with a click, the sword in his hand was broken directly. Shamanra, Clark looked ferocious, and the remaining sword shattered like glass with a crash, turning into countless red fragments and exploding forward. With a snap, a big blue and black hand reached over against the fragment and pressed hard on his forehead. No. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Clark looked crazy, and red scars suddenly appeared all over his body. Countless scars that were originally flesh-colored were instantly filled with blood, like countless blood-colored tattoos on his body. At this moment, when Clark's skull was almost crushed, a terrifying counter-shock force seemed to erupt from his whole body, and he struggled to break away from Garen's big hand, and a small piece of skin on his forehead was scratched by his nails. Holding back the sharp pain in his head, Clark jumped upside down and turned over. Boom! He was hit hard by a slap on the body, and blood surged out of his throat. He used the force to fly up the wall, and his heart was filled with the shadow of fear of Garen. Without daring to look back, he ran into the darkness and quickly disappeared. He was dead. Garen calmly retracted his right palm, but was stopped by the hunter and boxing champion Leo, and two heavy machine guns fired at him wildly. A large number of bullets splashed golden sparks on his body, and everyone felt a chill in their hearts. They watched Garen holding a machine gun and casually dealing with the long-range attacks of the hunter and the boxing champion Leo. Seeing Clark escaping, it wasn't that Leo and the hunter didn't want to leave, but they were completely locked into Garen's spirit and didn't dare to stop attacking. They could feel that the moment they stopped attacking, they were killed. They are not top fighters like Clark, and they do not have such terrifying vitality and explosive power. All the people who attacked were panicked. The people from the Demon Elephant sect were still holding back their fear and continued to attack because of the strict rules and disciplines. However, most of the people from the Black Label Society were martial artists who had committed crimes and simply could not withstand this kind of situation. Under the pressure of fear, someone suddenly retreated quietly from the yard. The two heavy machine guns were controlled by 4 people, and the hands of those responsible for loading the ammunition chains were trembling. The shooter could barely hold down the muzzle of the gun, and a large number of bullets began to deflect and hit the wall behind Garen. Boxing champion Leo and Hunter looked at the approaching Garen, with cold sweat breaking out on their faces, foreheads, and bodies. Some of the bullets that were deflected left streaks of blood on Leo's face. The gun in his hand stopped unknowingly, and the two hunters were about to get close to each other. There were 2 booms and explosions, and the 2 men suddenly turned into 2 fireballs. They carried a large amount of explosives with them and detonated the bombs themselves. At this time, Galleon was still several meters away from the explosion range. They couldn't bear the pressure and chose to commit suicide. Kobela, the general of the Nantian Holy Fist sect, said in a harsh voice. The flames ignited the houses on the side of the yard, and the red fire reflected on Garen's face, reflecting a strange red shadow. He stood in front of the fire with his hands behind his hands, and suddenly looked at the boxing champion Leo on the side. I don't know when the gunfire stopped. Leo stared blankly at the figure in front of the fire, his whole body shaking uncontrollably, and with a plop, he suddenly fell to his knees. The flames were burning right beside the 2 men, making the sound of crackling wood exploding. It's over. Kobela looked at the figure in front of the fire, and his heart suddenly surged with excitement, and a rush of blood surged up. After this battle, I will be invincible. He recalled the deeds of Palasha back then. Suddenly he had the illusion of witnessing history. He will become a new generation of Holy Fist. Seeing the boxing champion Leo kneeling in front of Garen, an extremely exciting thought came to Kobera's heart. Garen raised his head and looked at the dark night sky, as if he realized something for a moment. Behind the fire, policeman Gaining stared blankly at the figure standing quietly in the field, and an unprecedented longing suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 162. A few days later. The starry sky in the sky was vast and boundless, and Garen had never felt like looking up like this before. Ever since that war, you especially like to look up at the stars at night. Is there anything special about you? The 8th golden ring came out of a corner of the yard wearing a black cloak. His face was still pale, but his eyes looking at Garen were extremely complicated. A special place, Garen smiled, it's just how insignificant I feel. The 2 of them were standing in a suburban yard arranged by Jinhuan. They were surrounded by various flowers and plants, red and green, which were particularly eye-catching. Insignificant. In that battle a few days ago, you have been hailed as the strongest master in the southern secret martial arts world. Second only to Palasha, you think you are insignificant. Then others really don't know how to position themselves the eighth golden ring side. What are your plans next? How are those people doing? Garen asked. It's okay, I'm just a little confused. I checked with a few psychiatrists and they said it was caused by excessive mental shock. By the way, they all want to see you. See me, Garen smiled. Since that day when he suddenly realized the indomitable spiritual realm, he could clearly feel that his energy and spirit began to become completely integrated, flowing continuously, and his body's sensitivity and five senses were sharp. Reached an unprecedented level of terror. Just like now, he could even feel the heartbeat and blood flow of the eighth golden ring several meters away, and could hear the hissing sound of his blood rubbing against the blood vessels. Ordinary people's mental concentration will form what is called attention. They can only focus a little. If they are highly concentrated, they will become exhausted after a while. Then you can only wait for the circulation of chi and blood to slowly and naturally recover. But now, his essence, energy and spirit are integrated into one, his spirit is endless, his energy and blood are huge and stable, and his attention on the surrounding environment seems to have the effect of ordinary people's concentration everywhere. The environment within a 5-meter radius was clearly visible in his mind. What did they see me for? Recalling that day, the person who was taken away by the Golden Circle soldiers arranged by Garen without any resistance. Apart from the three of them, including the senior sister Rosita, Angela of the Elephant Gate, and Leo, the boxing champion of the Black Label Club, there are also some remaining subordinates of the Black Label Club of the Elephant Gate. 54 people in total. Half of them were too frightened after this battle. It seemed that they were suffering from mental disorders due to Garen's majesty. They had been sent to a nearby mental hospital for examination. The other half is now staying in prison, asking for help. His psychological defenses have been completely broken by the fight that day. I don't know, their spirits have been crushed by you, and they can't help but obey anything that involves you. In other words, they are completely convinced by you, the eighth golden ring said with emotion. Looking back now, it was indeed a wise decision for me to recommend you to join the Golden Circle. The Black Label Society and the Elephant Gate should be taking action, right? Garen asked softly. Of course, but when it comes to national security, it's useless for anyone to come. The strength of the Demon Elephant Gate Black Label Association is in the individual force. There is no way that the power in the Federation can be compared with our Golden Circle. What the Golden Circle lacks is also it's about individual strength. Now that you're here, I'm completely confident, the eighth golden ring chuckled, we don't have to give them face. Garen understood that he was showing that he stood with him, and he did not hesitate to completely offend the Black Label Society and the Elephant Sect. The strength of these two behemoths is more than that. It is obvious that the people inside Jinhuan are also planning to take a gamble on him. By the way, where's Clark? Garen recalled the top red sand sword fighter who was hit by him. His body was just discovered. I came here mainly to inform you. Do you want to take a look? Certainly. Garen followed the eighth golden ring into the back room and entered a study room on the side. There was an tunnel entrance on the ground. The two of them walked in one after another. There were bright yellow electric lights installed on the wall. 2 soldiers in black were guarding them at intervals. As the two people passed by, the soldiers would also salute neatly. Garen calmly followed the eighth golden ring as he walked diagonally downward. The light yellow passage seems to go all the way to the edge. Soon the two of them turned into a white room. 2 coroners were already standing in the room. Seeing the 2 people coming in, the coroner quickly bowed and stepped back. How is it going? A female coroner took off her blue gloves, swept her brown hair from her temples, and hesitated to speak. The endocrine system and blood circulation system of the corpse were overly excited before death. I don't know why. Sir, you'd better take a look for yourself. The eighth golden ring walked to the corpse. Clark was lying flat on a white high platform, with his lower body covered with a white cloth. On his exposed upper body, a Y-shaped knife mark was cut from his chest to his lower abdomen. The eighth golden ring put on his gloves, lifted up the white cloth and glanced at it, then raised his head and motioned to Garin. "Come and see for yourself." Galen took the gloves handed over by the coroner, put them on and walked over. Clark's body lay quietly on the platform. His skin was not as pale and bloodless as that of ordinary corpses, but instead showed a strangely ripe red color. Garin touched his forehead lightly, frowning slightly. "After being poisoned by the heat of my red jade palm, the body is overheated. It is normal to die like this. It's just what? Someone tried to save him. And he was a master." "Oh." The eighth golden ring also became interested. "What level of master?" "It's very strong. But it doesn't matter." The moment Clark left the yard, the result was fixed. Garin looked calm. "Ruby palm, tisk tisk, it's like boiling a person's blood, and the whole person is cooked." The eighth golden ring kept sighing. The two coroners stood aside as if they were listening to a myth. "Sir, do you think people have the means to control another person's endocrine and internal heat thermostat system? This is completely unscientific." The female coroner looked at the two people in astonishment, as if she were looking at an alien. This person was obviously cooked by something with high heat. "My suggestion is to conduct tissue sampling and test directly to see the cell changes in the internal details. Everything must be analyzed from the test results." The eighth golden ring and galleons are difficult to explain to this obvious layman. Such secret martial arts are indeed equivalent to myths to outsiders. "Everything on this guy's body has been searched, otherwise maybe we can find some useful secret martial arts information," the eighth golden ring said regretfully. "Let's go to my senior brother's side." Garin turned and walked towards the door. The third senior brother came with him, but before the operation, he did not let the third senior brother participate, and did not even give him any information at all. He waited until everything was over before letting someone notify Garcia. Although Garcia was particularly annoyed, he also knew that this was Galen doing it for his own good. He came later and stayed here to guard Lacida and others. After leaving the morgue, the two of them washed their hands and continued walking down the passage. Not long after, they came to a row of closed prison passages. On both sides of the passage are sealed prisons, some of which are empty, and some of which contain mortals. The walls had a smoky gray-black color, and the ground looked a little dirty, with some thin blood scabs here and there. Several prison guards patrolled back and forth with pistols on their waists and batons in their hands. The prison passage was very long, and the two of them walked directly inside. The warden, who hurried over, followed them closely, introducing the situation here. "The prisoners here just came in a few days ago. Among them, the few leading prisoners who were specially ordered have already been pierced with pipa bones and put on the strongest steel shackles. There is absolutely no chance of any problems." He followed at a trot, with a large bunch of keys ready in his hand, ready to open the door for the two leaders at any time. As the little leader of Jinhuan, he still has good eyesight. The young man brought by the 8th Jinhuan this time, although he did not wear a golden ring to show his position, he just looked at the silent pressure. Some of the spiky-headed old prisoners who were usually shouting and cursing on the streets around them didn't dare to say a word, so they knew that this man was definitely a big shot and a ruthless character. The prisoner divisions here are arranged according to strength and importance. The further inside they are, the more important they are, the warden introduced carefully. "Go to the innermost heavy prison," the 8th golden ring said calmly. "Yes, yes, yes." The warden, a thin, middle-aged man, bent down repeatedly, took the key, and immediately began to direct the guards to open the doors. One after another, the iron doors were opened by a layer of sen. Garin followed everyone into the depths of the prison at the innermost end. The smell of blood is getting stronger and stronger. As more and more iron doors are opened, the prisons on both sides are getting bigger and bigger, and the metal bars of the prison are getting thicker and thicker. Some prisoners in the prisons on both sides were hiding in the corners. Their eyes were bloodshot and they looked thin, but their violent and powerful auras were constantly coming from both sides. From time to time someone would laugh and whistle. "Little Jack. You brought a new person here to sell your butt again? It's really not easy." A strong man with disheveled hair on the left chuckled sinisterly. "This time I brought a little guy with thin skin and tender flesh. He looks like he is just 20." A bearded male prisoner stood up and took off his pants directly in front of several people, actually intending to boo. Boom. Garen's eyes flashed fiercely, and he stretched out a hand suddenly, pressing it on the thick iron bar of his arm like a black python. Click. The iron bar broke, flew inward, hit the prisoner's chest hard, stabbed him through with a sneer, and drove him upside down and nailed him to the wall behind him. The man didn't say a word and died immediately. Guru. It was quiet around the prison, and the warden swallowed his saliva with a cold sweat on his face. No one around the prisoners dared to make trouble now. They all shrank into the shadow of the prison like frightened beasts. The previously noisy severe punishment prison suddenly became silent. Garen withdrew his left hand, and the iron bars of the prison were broken by him, and the entire metal door of the single-cell prison was loosened. Continue. Yes, yes, yes. The warden unconsciously moved further away from Garen, a little closer to the 8th golden ring. The scene just now made him feel like he was getting goosebumps all over as he was so close to Garen. It's so perverted. It's so perverted, he kept mumbling in his mind as he led the way, peeking at Garen from time to time and paying attention to the expression on Garen's face at all times, fearing that he might offend the other person accidentally. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 163. The 8th golden ring deliberately lagged behind and glanced at the broken metal bars of the prison iron door. Although there was no expression on his face, there was a hint of terrifying fear in his eyes. Although he had heard that Garen defeated so many people and besieged him head-on, he didn't actually see it live, so he didn't feel much about it. He just felt that it was very powerful. But now, he could see the killing scene in person at close range. Garen's casual killing was like killing and trampling an ant, an absolute ferocity and arrogance pervaded Garen's side. Such speed. Such power. The 8th golden ring finally realized why the masters of the Black Label Society and the Elephant Gate were beaten completely into submission by Garen. Facing this kind of person, even if they are just close, they feel extremely threatened and uneasy. If Garen exploded with all his strength, he really couldn't imagine what kind of horrific scene it would be. Garen silently followed the warden as he walked deeper into the prison. He can feel that although his strength has not increased, the substantial increase in speed has enhanced his explosive power in disguise. The high-speed mass will also bring terrifying impact. Just like the palm just now, he did not use any Maiwu, is just a combination of pure strength and speed to break the iron bars and stab the prisoner to death. Unconsciously, I have become so powerful. He felt the cold and hard ground under his feet and smelled the strong smell of blood in the air. Soon, Lasida's figure finally appeared in front of him on the right side. A group of people stood at the door of Lasida prison. Third brother Garcia was standing guard at the door of the prison, sitting on a chair. When he saw Garen and others coming, he slowly stood up. "Galen, are you here?" Garcia looked very haggard. He seemed to have lost weight. His eye circles were sunken and darkened. It was obvious that he had not had a good rest in the past few days. "You go and rest first," third senior brother Garen frowned. "You are just torturing your own body." Garcia glanced at Rosita, who was sitting cross-legged in the prison, and nodded slowly. "You ask, she won't say anything." "Leave it to me," Garen nodded. Garcia said a few more polite words to the eighth golden circle, and then left on his own, accompanied by the jailer. The eighth golden circle also knew that Garin wanted to inquire alone, so he consciously stepped back far away and went to inspect other prisons. The warden knew the opportunity and moved all the jailers away, and he also walked away. He didn't want to stay with Garin for a moment. The scene just now scared him so much that he was still sweating coldly. For a moment, there was no one else around. At the black prison door, apart from a few other serious prisoners, only Garin and Losita were left. Rosita was still wearing a black cloak, sitting cross-legged on the ground, with long brown hair in a ponytail hanging behind her head. Her face was calm, and her eyes were dull. "Where's the second senior brother?" Jia Long looked at her and spoke slowly. "Tell me the news about your second senior brother Farrokh." "Farrokh," Rosita raised her head and looked at Garin blankly. "I told you, can you not kill me?" There seemed to be a trace of life in her eyes. Garin just looked at her and said nothing. Rosita suddenly smiled bitterly. "I never thought I would regret it, Farrokh. He's dead." Garin stared at her indifferently. Although he had expected it, when he actually heard the news, he still felt a little sad. Farrokh often gave him guidance and helped him when he was laying the foundation, and corrected his basic mistakes. He is a man who looks dangerous but is actually very gentle. "How did you die?" Losita smiled. "That day when I left Bayanman, he chased me all the way. We fought back and forth more than 30 times, and his throat was torn out with my claw." "Where's the elder?" "He's dead too. I wanted to go into the library to look for something, but he dared to stop me. He's looking for death. He's still relying on his old age, so I killed him with one slap." Losita's expression was dull. She raised her head and suddenly smiled miserably. "Winner or loser, I may have thought that someone would come after me, but I never thought it would be you." "What else do you want to say?" Garin was silent for a moment and said calmly. "So this is the taste of fear." Rosita lowered her head and smiled miserably, her body trembling slightly. "What are you going to do with me?" "Follow the rules of the division." Garin said a word, turned and walked towards the depths of the prison. Not far away, the senior sister's voice came intermittently from behind. "The boat is rocking and the water is green and green. You are standing next to me in front of the lotus leaves and lotus roots." It was a piece of singing, and the sound was a little nostalgic and a little crazy. For some reason, Garin suddenly recalled his second senior brother Farrokh. "You really like second senior brother, right?" The singing behind him paused for a moment, and Rosita sat there in a daze, then suddenly leaned down, and in the darkness, there was a faint sound of choking. Garin closed his eyes, his heart also filled with ripples. Without hesitation, he strode deeper into the prison. Perhaps the eldest sister regretted joining the demon elephant sect in order to pursue higher martial arts, regretting that she betrayed the sect by killing the second senior brother and the elder. There seemed to be many unknown stories between her and her second senior brother. These stories will eventually be completely lost in time as the two disappear. Garin won't delve into it, nor does he want to delve into it. Because the master was in a coma for a long time, his body could not absorb the food and could not keep up with nutrition, which eventually led to his death. The last remaining wish was to kill Losita. He didn't tell the reason, and Garin didn't even think to ask. In any case, the matter has been concluded and everything is settled. Perhaps a long time later he will go to the east along the sea route to find the roots of Bayun Gate, but now, everything is over. There will always be a lot of helplessness in life. The child chose to do something wrong, so she has to pay the corresponding price. In a single room on the left side of the prison, a white-haired old man whispered. "Look away, kid." There was also a trace of helplessness in the old man's cloudy eyes. Perhaps Losita's singing also brought back his memories. "Who are you?" Garin stopped and looked at this person. "It's just an old man who is about to die. This is the prison of Jinhuan, and it is also where the federal government originally detained some extremely vicious felons, the old man replied calmly. I remember you. Garen felt that this old man was a bit unusual. He was full of fierceness, but his tone of voice was extremely kind. I focused on the number of the prison cell, number 12. Leaving here, he moved on. There is no one guarding the front. This is a place where even the jailers are scared. The 8th Golden Circle has also introduced this place in the past 2 days. Some of the terrifying prisoners can even kill people with their saliva. Many of them are old people who have been imprisoned by the federal government for who knows how many years. They are all old guys who have committed heinous crimes and have died countless times without being able to satisfy their anger. They are just kept in prison for various reasons. Wardens and jailers have changed from generation to generation, but these old prisoners are still there. Some have died of old age, while others are still living tenaciously. Garen found Leo, the imprisoned Black Label boxing champion, in prison number 10. Angela from the Elephant Gate was also imprisoned in a nearby prison because of her identity. They are locked up here not because of their strength, but more because of their importance. Both of them had heavy and huge black shackles on their hands and feet. When they saw Garen approaching, they both sat on the ground and stared up at Garen. Garen Lombard. If possible, I hope to join your service. Boxing champion Leo seemed a little fanatical about Garen. In order to pursue the peak of boxing, I killed people at the age of 15, and killed thousands at the age of 20. In order to pursue to get stronger weapons, join the Black Label. In order to pursue more resources, I became the link between the Black Label and the Elephant Gate. But I got nothing. Until today. He stood up suddenly, and the metal shackles kept making violent banging sounds. I am not willing to accept the decline of martial arts. I want to prove that martial arts can also fight against hot weapons head-on. Until now, I finally see the light in you. What exactly do you want to say? Garen frowned. I want to follow you, Leo said excitedly, dancing with joy. You are destined to become a great man who makes history in the martial arts world. The direction you are heading is my lifelong dream. This lunatic, Angela from the Demon Elephant Gate cursed on the side. You should first think about whether the Black Label Society and the Elephant Sect will let you go. Garen also didn't expect that boxing champion Leo's situation would be like this. This guy was obviously a typical martial arts seeker and fanatic. There is always a small group of people in the martial arts world who are very traditional and will sacrifice everything in pursuit of the pinnacle of martial arts. It seems that this boxing champion Leo is such a person. However, Garen still planned to observe for a while to see if Leo really wanted to surrender. The surrender of a boxing champion and a more powerful fighter is also a big boost to Garen's Biun section. After all, this is already the peak level of individual force for human beings. After confirming his thoughts, he shifted his gaze and looked at Angela aside. Look what I did. I don't know the information about the Demon Elephant Sect very well. We are not at the top. Anyone who is not at the top does not know the information about other members of the Demon Elephant section. Our organizational form is a completely independent branch structure. Each branch is unaware of the others. Angela shrank slightly and took a few steps back behind the prison. It was obvious that the shadow of Garen's day still lingered in her heart. Then what role do you have? Garen frowned. I can also swear allegiance to you. Allegiance to the Biun sect. Angela ranked Garen at the front, which means that the first person to be loyal to is Jia Long personally, and then the Biun sect. For Garen, power is just a source of information and an auxiliary tool. What he prefers is to improve himself, sublimate himself, and reach the level of evolving himself through martial arts. So I don't really care about these trivial matters. Anything else? What else? Angela was a smart woman, and she immediately analyzed Garen's personality. As she rolled her eyes, she suddenly thought of something. I know the news about the blood of immortality. Blood of immortality. After the blood of immortality flowed from Ansara's hands, it was said that part of it was snatched away by the card players, and the other part was accidentally obtained by us. Angela stared at Garen's expression cautiously, fearing that if she accidentally lost her use value and was get rid of it. Did you succeed? Garen was quite surprised. Yes, the people below sent it to our middle management, so the upper management wants to get the modulation technology from you. Where is that part? Garen asked directly, not bothering to talk nonsense to her. In a secret place. Angela hesitated. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 164. Yes, only part of it. Angela nodded. It's a pity that I don't have a method to use it, Garen said regretfully. Do you have any information on the specific effects of the blood of immortality? This is simple, many people know it. Angela paused to sort out the information in her mind. The effects of the blood of immortality vary. In fact, it originally originated from non-human races. In human race, Garen heard this term for the first time. Yes, most non-human races have a lifespan far longer than that of humans, and some of them are special ones called immortal species. When human extreme warriors pursue the limits of martial arts, they increasingly feel that time is not enough, so for the longevity of non-human races, I became voyeuristic. When Angela saw that Galen was attracted to her, she was slightly relieved and her tone became calmer. So some of the top geniuses among human warriors began to study how to obtain the lifespan of these immortal races. Hybridization and consumption are the two most important ways of conclusion. They are also the two most effective methods. Among them, hybridization is the best, and the results obtained through mating are stronger offspring and bloodline, which gradually formed the humanoid racial communities in some countries now. The second is food. Powerful individuals prefer to apply life extension to themselves. With the drought era thousands of years ago, that is, after the era of great drought in the world, many immortal species gradually evacuated into the ocean and stayed away from this land. They took ships and could sail in units of several decades. It was impossible for humans to go to sea in the same way. Naturally, the conflicts between them and humans gradually disappeared. Is the blood of immortality what they left behind? Garen asked. Yes, because the immortality seeds are too rare, only a little bit of the immortal blood from the past can be found in some ruins. They are actually mixed blood after ancient humans absorbed the immortality seeds. The blood is mixed, but it can still extend lifespan. Function, Angela explained. Except for the ruins, since the immortal species left 1,000 years ago, there must be humans with immortal lineage passing on, right? If they really live long, then even if it's thousands of years, it's probably only a few generations for them. When Long heard about immortality, the first thing he thought of was vampires and werewolves. This kind of dark creature became famous and became a legend when it was on the earth. It is said that vampires are immortal and stay young forever. This left a really deep impression on the people on earth. Indeed, there are still immortal bloodline families existing. It's just that they are hidden in the human world, and it is difficult for ordinary people to detect them without transforming. Unless they have specially made special sensitive detectors. And a detector. Li Jayed, an academician of the Academy of Sciences of the Xionglan Empire, once developed a detector named Boiling Blood. However, the cost was very expensive, and our demon elephant sect only bought 2. Moreover, it consumed a lot of power and was very impractical. The Pandan Empire is a large country in Lanzhou, one of the 3 continents, and is currently in a small-scale conflict with the Tulip Republic. After all, the Pandan Empire was also a developed country that was once powerful and had a profound foundation. We are not very afraid of the 3 super-hegemonic countries. Galen, who has studied world geography, naturally understands this. Besides, there are many types of immortal blood, Angela added, stealing a glance at Garen. Type. In addition to lifespan, humans will also be given many different talents. When Angela said this, She was also observing Garen, but found that the thoughts and surprise on Garen's face were indeed natural, and it seemed that he really was the first. This is the first time I heard this common sense. This made her originally thought that Garen was also a fusion of the blood of immortality, somewhat shaken. So what race is the half you are holding? It is the blood of the white dog man. The lifespan can be up to 300 years, and the average lifespan is about 200 years old. After absorbing the blood, the lifespan can basically be extended to 100, 40, or 50 years old. Plus a series of techniques for maintaining and locking the essence. And can even live to be over 200 years old. White Dog Man Garen was speechless. Once he heard about this bloodline, he lost interest in snatching it. With his own innate abilities, there is no need to seize this thing. Now, he has almost reached the peak of human quality before he was 20 years old, and he has begun to pursue the future path. There are still at least 7 or 80 years left for him to slowly search for it, and he is not in a hurry at all. Then, where does the power of telepathy in the Immortal Palace come from? He asked, the doubt that had been in his mind for a long time. The Immortal Palace represents the bloodline of the immortal seed. They are the only remaining organizations established by the immortal bloodline. It is not surprising that they have some special abilities. Moreover, most humans not only do not let go of the immortal seed and the blood of immortality, but even fuse them. Humans who have acquired the blood of immortality also have a voyeuristic heart. Once the bloodline of immortality declines, they will end up in a miserable state and become guinea pigs and blood slaves. The strong men of the Immortal Palace, Fairy Fran and Fire Sparrow Mother, they are both representatives. Both of them are fused humans of the immortal species. Their families were brutally wiped out, and they have an indelible hatred for ordinary humans. She paused and continued. There are a total of 5 people in the Immortal Palace. Now that Angelugo has been seriously injured and escaped, there are only 4 people left. Each of these 4 people has some secret force organizations under their command. Among them, Immortal Fran and Firebird Mother have revealed their identities openly, and there are 2 people, and we only know that one of them is Weissman's former Admiral Gefeld, and the last one is unknown. Garen touched his chin as he sorted through the series of information he had just obtained. He remembered that Selene once said that there were 5 people in Asgard, but now that one is missing, there are only 4 left. It does match what Angela said. Very good, let me finally tell you about your elephant sex plan this time. Use Lassiter to lure me here, and then Clark and the hunting team want to surround me. What is the purpose? Garen finally mentioned. What happened this time? You must have guessed that we are here just for the blood of immortality that may be hidden in your body. Angela was also frank enough to speak out. Unfortunately, I am not a fusion of immortal blood. Garen shrugged. Even humans have many powerful geniuses, and they are not only of inhuman blood. If you say this, someone must believe it. Angela also laughed helplessly. Wouldn't it be possible to find a detector if we have a chance? Garen said nonchalantly. Angela's eyes suddenly widened and she became a little doubtful. It depends on what I do. I was born into an ordinary family. Where did I get the blood of immortality? This information can be investigated completely, Garen said casually. After getting enough information, Garen stopped lingering and turned out of another prison passage, returning to the study on the ground. The 8th golden ring was already sitting in the room. There was a pot of hot coffee on the table in front of him, and he was pouring himself a cup of coffee. When he saw Garen coming out, he didn't say anything. He just took out a dark red roll of paper from his arms, placed it on the table and held it down with a white porcelain cup. Garen walked over and sat down opposite the 8th golden ring, took away the cup, picked up the roll and unfolded it. Appoint number 9 as the regional director of Grant Province. It has the power to mobilize all garrison troops stationed throughout the province. Seal on the back, Jinhuan headquarters. Garen took the roll and understood. Is this specially prepared for me? Yes, the 8th golden circle replied calmly, the higher-ups need your expression. As long as you can complete a designated small task, you will have the secret command power to mobilize the military power of the entire province. Grant's general commander, together with most of the command staff, are all our people. Garen understood that this was because Jin Huan saw that his value had increased and was sincerely trying to win him over to stay in the organization. In other words, it is more about trying to draw him closer to a certain force in the Golden Ring. It seems that this force is not generally powerful and is likely to be related to national leaders. No, maybe it's the other way around, with national leaders trying to leverage their own power through the Golden Circle. This is also possible. With such great power, what do you want from me? Garen asked calmly as he flicked the paper. I just need to help the government solve some minor problems. The Eighth Golden Ring smiled. This is equivalent to being a mercenary on a temporary basis, but generally there are very few times when you can be used. Having one mission in a few years is already a big deal. I need a hard target. Don't come up with these false ideas. Galen also knows that with his strength, it is impossible to live comfortably without the support of the federal government, so he is not opposed to such a move closer. How about completing a task every 3 years? The Eighth Golden Circle has obviously reached an agreement with the above. The mission success rate must be at least half. The government will also release operational funds every time. Okay, Garen is not stingy either. He only has one mission every 3 years. This is already his preferential treatment as a top fighter. What he actually needs is to use the power of the government to protect his family and Bayanman, and he doesn't care about the rest. Now individual hot weapons still pose a threat to him, but due to the substantial increase in speed, it has become very small. The government is obviously very experienced in making such arrangements. This system is very loose, but it can ensure that the country can temporarily mobilize enough private power when needed. It's an arrangement similar to that of a bounty hunter. Sitting on his seat, Garen slowly poured himself a glass, thinking about everything in his recent life. At first, I was still studying in Huaishan City, looking for antiques of bad luck. I originally thought that I should go to college honestly, find a job after graduation, and slowly rely on my talent to reach the top of martial arts step by step. Unfortunately, the change came too fast. Because of the attack on the Immortal Palace and the changes in his master's sect, he owed Sulin 2 favors and had to help solve Sulin's troubles. Until now, I have gradually become famous step by step without realizing it. In a short period of time, he reached the pinnacle level of a warrior. Now that he has taken over the Bayun sect, he has become an important figure in the eyes of the martial arts world, terrorist organizations, and even the government. Thinking of this, Garen felt an inexplicable sense of unreality. In fact, his current physical age was less than 19 years old, and he was in his early 18s. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 165. By the way, where is the little policeman who came back from behind? Garen recalled the recent events, and immediately thought of the little policeman Gaining who suddenly came back that day. According to the answer of Tianjian Kobela, this little policeman was obviously still a policeman. A passionate young man, he came back just to find an opportunity to help him escape from the encirclement. I just didn't expect the change to come so quickly. Garen independently killed the collaboration between the Demon Elephant sect and the Black Label Society. I don't know. It seems like it's still there with the red sand sword. Garen nodded. He also admired such a person who repaid his kindness. After gathering his thoughts, the Eighth Golden Circle was already arranging a flight to Yinjia City. Not far from Yinjia City is Weimaran City, which is also the headquarters of the Nantian Holy Fist section. The city of Weimaran is close to the Lark Mountains, from where the Lark Mountain waterfall is the closest. The retreat of Whitebird Holy Fist Perosa is Skylark Mountain Falls. The two chatted for a while in the study room, and the Eighth Golden Ring focused on asking for some experience and skills in the practice of secret martial arts. Garin did not hide his secrets and answered them all. Most of his experience and skills were obtained from his master's teachings and his own experiments based on his strong physique. Although he is not as careful about strength and physical strength as ordinary warriors, he also has a deep understanding of some exercise methods that can damage muscles. These are rare treasures for warriors. Early the next morning, the leader of the Angsha sword sect came to visit with his 2 disciples and the little policeman gaining. Just as they sat down, Kobela from the Nandian Holy Fist sect also arrived with 2 people. The courtyard was surrounded by densely guarded soldiers in black. These were Special Legion soldiers mobilized by the Golden Ring. This gave both parties a certain deep understanding of Galen's background. Inside the spacious white hall, the people from the Red Sand Sword sect sit on the row of white sofas on the left, and the people from the Nandian Holy Fist sect sit on the sofa on the right. Galen and the 8th Golden Ring sit in the center. The sunlight from the breakfast slanted in from the front door and fell on the ground, forming an irregular golden strip shape. The white floor tiles also reflected the bright white light, illuminating the entire living room. Everyone sat down and Garin glanced at both sides. The leader of the Red Sand Sword sect on the left and the 2 disciples he brought with him all looked tired, and it was obvious that they had not fully recovered from the events of the past few days. The young policeman gaining looked at him eagerly, not knowing what he was thinking. Korbela, the general on the right, saw Garin's gaze and glanced over, and turned to him and smiled politely at him. He brought 2 disciples, a boy and a girl who looked alike, both in their 30s. They looked good in appearance and temperament, like twins. Faintly, there was a hint of suspicion in the 2 people's respect for Garin. Apparently they didn't believe that Garin, at the same age as their son, had already reached such a peak level. "What are you 2 here for today?" Garin asked directly without being polite. The master of the Red Sand Sword sect smiled politely. "Master Jialong sect, this time our Red Sand swordsmen are here to save you from the siege. If you hadn't taken action in time, the Angsha sword sect might have been destroyed." He glanced at the beautiful female disciple beside him. This disciple was only 15 or 16 years old, but he already had a curvy figure. He was wearing a white one-piece cheongsam short skirt and a high brown ponytail. He walked up to Galen and presented a white bank check with both hands. "Master Jialong, please accept it." "This is our thanks." The girl smiled sweetly, her big eyes were watery, and her skin was tender and flawless when viewed from a close distance, as perfect as a porcelain doll. She followed her father's arrangement and took the initiative to deliver the check so that she could more easily show her innocence, beauty, and temptation. The imposing Garin in front of him sat squarely in the middle of the living room, like a ferocious beast entrenched in the hall, with a formidable power. Anyone who enters the living room feels an unconscious sense of oppression. This is not the influence of courage, but the function of pure reputation. Just like ordinary people meeting high-ranking officials, it is the mental pressure they put on themselves. If he can catch his fancy, maybe he can be tied to the Red Sand Sword's chariot, which will increase his confidence in his father's rise plan. Thoughts flashed through the girl's mind. She knew that Bayu had always been secretly in love with her, but how could Bayu compare with the person in front of her? She is also an extremely ambitious person. After being appointed by her father as the future helmsman, she began to win over potential warriors in the entire sect step by step. It was largely her initiative to come here this time. Thinking of this, the smile on the girl's face became sweeter, and 2 deep dimples were exposed on her cheeks. The check was for 10 million federal dollars. Plus a beautiful, pure, seductively dressed young girl. Most young and energetic warriors can hardly resist it. After all, warriors are people with strong chi and blood. Strong chi and blood means that various endocrine systems are stronger than ordinary people, and natural physiological desires will be greatly amplified. Unfortunately, Garin just raised his eyes and glanced at her, and didn't bother to look again. No need for checks or anything like that. Money doesn't mean much to me. If you really want to thank me, I hope you can let me enter your secret arsenal and look through some non-core secret weapons. Reading the secret martial arts, the leader of the Red Sand Sword sect was stunned, and then smiled. That's right, this is the point where you want to live in the Bayun section. Since you have this need, of course we will not refuse. I just ask for your understanding, regarding the series of high-level secret weapons of the Red Sand Sword, we will not show them, but the rest are fine. He paused, as if he was afraid that Garen would misunderstand. Don't worry, except for the high-level secret weapons, the medium and low-level secret weapons in the secret arsenal there are more than 50 kinds. Thank you very much. Garen thought for a moment and realized that he didn't even know the other person's name. Just call me Luther. Thank you, Master Luther. The two looked at each other and smiled with satisfaction. Now that you two have finished talking, it's our turn. Heavenly General Corbera said with a smile on the single sofa on the right. Commander Kobela, please speak. He waved the girl in front of him back, and Garen turned his gaze. Kobela introduced the two people around him. These two staff members came specifically from the main gate. In response to the gate master's instructions, they invited the master of the Garan gate to go to the headquarters to meet him. Both of them were young men and women wearing white suits. The man with a mustache stood up and bowed slightly to Garen. Dear master of the Jialong sect, we bring you the most respectful greetings from the chief sect master. The sect master is very happy that the martial arts world can produce another top fighter. Unfortunately, due to many trivial matters, we cannot come to meet in person. If Jialong, the owner of the door, can go to pay homage to the door. Paying homage is a courtesy exchange between sects, and is often a way of communication between sects with equal status. The master of Nantian Holy Fist sect obviously puts Bayun sect Jialong on the same level as himself. Once Garen goes there, the other party will definitely put on a grand welcome ceremony. Thank you, Lord of the Holy Fist sect, for your attention. Don't worry, you two, I will go to disturb your sect soon. Garen originally planned to go to the Nantian Holy Fist section. The other party was polite enough, so he naturally agreed. The two of them bowed respectfully and bowed again, then sat back down. The General Corbera has accomplished the greatest thing. If Master Garen needs my help, just ask. I, Kobela, still have some roots in the south. Then I'd like to thank General Kobela first. I'm waiting for your arrival at this door. Corbera nodded. He already knew that Garen planned to challenge the Whitebird Holy Fist. This time he made up his mind to go to the Skylark Mountains to get a few good positions, and at the same time invited his friends from the same field to watch the battle together. No warrior would miss such a peak duel event. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but glance at Garen again on the main seat. Recalling the inhuman and terrifying combat power that night, Clark, who was much more powerful than him, was actually beaten like a garbage bag and flew away with a palm. He turned around and ran away. He didn't even dare to turn around and say harsh words. It was pure "I'm so scared." What kind of gap can lead to such a result? Will the martial arts world once again experience a new era of prosperity? Galen and Andrila are both absolute top talents. But it appeared in this era at the same time. This thought flashed through Corbera's mind. Garen, however, could not imagine what Corbera was thinking, so he casually chatted with the people on both sides about the current situation in the martial arts world. He also has a certain understanding of the current situation of martial artists in the world. In the martial arts world, fighters and below have very weak resistance to firearms. A slightly trained gunman can pose a huge threat to a martial artist. Not to mention a head-on confrontation. Only the fighter level is qualified to face thermal weapons head-on. Therefore, unlike the lower levels, governments in various countries have different attitudes towards fighters. The Federation's attitude is not one that takes it seriously, but it's not one that is contemptuous either. After all, no matter how strong a fighter is, he is still a human being, and special ammunition can kill him directly. Powerful special firearms can easily kill fighters from several kilometers away. Weissman is different. He attaches great importance to fighters, but they have very little background, and fighters are the least. Most martial artists are actually influenced by the ancient martial arts from the East. Most ships from the East arrive at the Yalu Federation first. The Wiseman Empire is too far away, so this is determined by geographical factors. As for Lanzhou, it is completely occupied by local martial arts, which advocates local ancient cold weapon martial arts. Various schools emerge in endlessly, and there are many fighters. Just not the Oriental style type. Now internationally, the status of martial artists is becoming more and more important. But perhaps it is because there is less and less soil at the grassroots level and technology is becoming more and more developed. There are fewer and fewer people willing to practice martial arts. More people they regard martial arts as gymnastics for physical exercise. Kobela lamented, although our status has become more and more important, the number of new generation fighters who have emerged in recent years is much smaller than before. So far, nearly 10 in recent years, there have been less than 5 new generation fighters in the entire South, and the same is true in the North. There are less than 10 in total. Garin frowned. The situation in the martial arts world was worse than he imagined. In other words, apart from me, Andrila, and Bio, there are only 2 other fighters in the South. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 166. That's true. Whether it's the Star Ring Gate or the Red Sand Sword, there are still a few fighter seeds prepared, but there are too few who can actually break through. Corbera nodded in affirmation. If this continues, the secret martial arts world and the martial arts world will become increasingly bleak. Luther, the leader of the Red Sand Sword sect, also nodded and frowned. Wouldn't a serious government cultivate martial artists on its own? Garin asked doubtfully. It can't be trained. The leader of the Red Sand Sword sect smiled bitterly. A fighter must use a large amount of medicinal materials to strengthen the body and provide nutrition. The training time is too long. Except for genius cases like you, ordinary fighters must. At least I have been practicing secret martial arts since I was young, and I have been using all kinds of resources. It takes more than 10 years to achieve a breakthrough. The problem is that this breakthrough is possible. It's just possible. The probability is too low. 1 seed out of 100 is considered good. Kobela took over. The cycle is too long and the probability is too low. Fighters are born because a certain quality reaches the limit of human beings, so there are many exercise methods that only lunatics would dare to try. And they must be maintained for a long time, otherwise the physical fitness will deteriorate. Anyway, in general, it is too difficult. Yes, the resources and time to train a fighter are enough for the country to train several sharpshooters. The threat on the battlefield is not as good as the sharpshooters. Even you and me here are unable to fight back against the cannons, right? The leader of the Red Sand Sword sect sighed. The atmosphere in the living room became a little dull for a while. Now that fire control technology is becoming more and more advanced, thermal weapons are becoming more and more powerful, and the role of individuals is getting smaller and smaller. Cannons, warships, and aircraft from various countries are competing for armaments like crazy. The role of fighters is to protect and attack secretly. This is also the case for the Federation. It's because we don't pay much attention to fighters, Luther explained. Garin also nodded. Indeed, even if he is at the peak of his hard Qigong, he will be injured by breaking the defense when faced with individual weapons. If it were another fighter, he would probably be broken into 2 pieces. But he feels that this is just that countries have not yet paid attention to the importance of special operations. Once there is a special operations decapitation operation similar to that on Earth, the importance of fighters will suddenly become highlighted. Let's not talk about this for now. The military plane has been arranged. I will leave the day after tomorrow. Garen looked at the master of the Red Sand Sword sect. The door owner was slightly confused. It seems that you are just checking the information. That's true, is there no problem? Certainly. Kobela on one side stood up, then let's take our leave first. I won't send it. Garen sat and watched the three of Korbera leave. After chatting with the leader of the Red Sand Sword sect for a few words, he got up and headed towards the Red Sand Sword headquarters. Riding in a tightly guarded red carriage convoy, the group returned to the headquarters compound they had just left a few days ago. The houses in the middle of the yard were all blackened by fire, and most places were in a mess. Only the row of houses on the left is still intact. Please come this way. The leader of the Red Sand Sword sect led Garen into the courtyard on the left. After passing through several connected houses, he entered a small courtyard. There is a small garden in the yard, a rockery pool, and a large locust tree with dense shade. Garen followed the door owner, looking beyond the rockery and saw a row of townhouses and a small courtyard on the opposite side. In the courtyard over there, servants were constantly coming and going, some carrying water, and some holding used white bandages. Noticing Garen's gaze, the door owner smiled and explained. Bio lives in the yard over there. He was seriously injured last time he went on a mission for the federal government and is still recovering. Really? Garen nodded. The two continued walking forward, crossing the small courtyard and reaching the door of a remote small room. In front of the reddish-brown wooden door, two old men and women sat opposite each other, each holding a book in their hands, frowning, and muttering in confusion. Seeing the door owner approaching, the two of them stood up together. Coming. Here we come. Please open the door. The master of the Angsha sword sect nodded. The reddish-brown wooden door slowly opened. The door owner, Luther, didn't stay either. He simply gave a few instructions and left alone. The door closed again, leaving Garen alone in the room. The room is paved with mahogany floors and is in the shape of a rectangular space. A row of bookshelves line the wall opposite the door. There was a spiral staircase on the right side of the bookshelves, extending directly upward. There is access to the second floor. There are some tables and chairs in front of the bookshelf, and a tall black stone sculpture of a human body is placed in the middle. The sculpture depicts a curly-haired man wearing black gauze. He has a solemn expression and seems to be walking forward with a book in his hand. Galen walked over, bypassed the man's sculpture, and stood in front of the bookshelf. It's divided into categories above. There are 4 bookshelves in total from left to right. They are experience, practice, dismissal, and low-level secret martial arts. There are not many books on the bookshelves, they are sparse and there are only 10 or 20 books on each bookshelf. Putting aside the previous 3 categories, Garen stood directly in front of the low-level secret weapon. The Maiwo bookshelf is divided into body skills, palm skills, leg skills, finger skills, and weapons. Among them, there were at most 7 or 8 books on weapons, and Garen picked them up one by one and scanned them. Chris Dagger, Sword of Glory, Double Sword, 3 Sword, 2-handed Sword, 1-handed Sword, Heavy Sword. After scanning them all, these secret weapons are all low-level secret weapons. The physical attributes required are not high. In addition, his attributes are now full and solidified to the limit of the human body. Naturally, it takes no effort at all. Just read them all and remember them directly in your mind. Just because it's useless now doesn't mean it won't be useful in the future. Although these secret martial arts levels are only third-rate at best, they are similar to Iron Body and Boulder skills. After scanning the weapons, his eyes fell on the movement technique again. Fingers lightly brushed over the Shenfa column. Sea Serpent Step, Green Blast, Raid, Stella Assassination Step. There are only a few of these. Garen picked it up and turned it over. Most of the above exercises used special postures to explode muscle energy and blood strength, but there was no way to make up for it with cultivation. It was just Mr. Ge's extremely powerful explosive skills. Many of them even felt a bit overbearing to Garin. Completely different styles. Could this be the rumored Lanzhou martial arts? He also memorized the cherished martial arts one by one. It only takes a few minutes to memorize the entire book. Fingering and palm techniques are the key points. But there are only a few. Fingering, claw, double fingering. Palm skills, lily palm, Javier boxing. I scanned it a little, but it's not of much use to Galleons. It's just a good way to learn about the effects of different exercise methods. There was nothing to see on the first floor, so he climbed up the spiral staircase to the second floor. There is a bookshelf on the second floor, and there are more than a dozen books on it that are equally sparse. But Garin just glanced at it, his expression changed, and a hint of joy flashed in his eyes. There are many secret weapons on this bookshelf that are more suitable for him. He casually pulled out a copy of Lion King Fist, which is a secret martial arts book for training the hardness of fists, with corresponding fighting techniques. It is a boxing technique that is rumored to be able to form absolute self-confidence through exercise, and is very helpful in improving a person's character. It is one of the magic boxing techniques. After carefully memorizing the Lion King Fist, Garin continued to scan the others. The Boulder Kung Fu, Iron Body, and Fire Hands are all there too. Except for the known secret martial arts techniques, Garin drew out all the remaining secret martial arts. Place it on a tabletop on the second floor. Changing Speed Punch, Bronze Statue Kung Fu, Iron Statue Kung Fu, Golden Statue Kung Fu, Hadoman Spear Jab, Flame Claw. There are 6 books in total, all of which are brand new secret weapons that Garin has never touched before, and all of them are fully equipped. They are all on the same level as the Giant Elephant secret martial arts, or even stronger secret martial arts. Belongs to the third-rate and second-rate categories. Red Sand Sword Sect seems to not include a full set of exercises, but nothing else. Garin flipped through the secret weapons already mastered by Yan Liaoxiao and others to see if there were any differences. Then memorize all 6 secret martial arts. The Bronze Statue Kung Fu, the Iron Statue Kung Fu, and the Golden Statue Kung Fu are a hard Qigong sect that was once destroyed by the Red Sand Sword. The secret martial arts techniques obtained by searching are not put away here. They are obviously specially prepared for Jialong. These 3 sets of exercises are very powerful, and their power is not much different. But there is a very crucial point. For outsiders, there is not much difference in power between the 3 levels of bronze, iron, and gold. However, if practitioners confront each other, the bronze statue skill will be restrained by the iron statue skill, and the iron statue skill will be restrained by the gold statue skill. This is obviously one of the methods used by any sect to control its disciples. Changing speed boxing can be used as an auxiliary to increase the flexibility of boxing, which can be regarded as a small secret martial arts training technique. The Hortoman spear jab is a secret weapon with terrifying explosive power. It is a boxing technique created by a martial artist that imitates the principles of firearms. It can allow ordinary people to explode with more than 3 times the terrifying punching power. But Hadoman himself also died before the age of 40 because of this boxing technique. All martial artists who practice this boxing technique are all amazingly powerful, but they all die very young without exception. The secret book clearly records the age of death of all practitioners, and they all died without illness and died normally. This can be used to train dead soldiers. Garin also wrote down this secret weapon. Finally, there's the flame claw. This is a secret martial art that simply exercises the hands. It can train the hands so that they are not afraid of ordinary flames and high temperatures. Average power. The creator was a mediocre fighter. When he was approaching 50, he wanted to go further and create a stronger secret weapon. He died in the raging flames he caused. Garen flipped through the secret martial arts, feeling slightly moved in his heart. After memorizing it carefully, he closed his eyes and looked at the attribute bar below his field of vision. Power 2.66. Agility 2.72. Physical fitness 2.65. Intelligence 2.53. Potential 626%. My Woo. Colossus mutation, explosion, top layer, skin hardened by 1 level, iron body, chi and blood stabilized by 1 level, boulder skill. Ruby palm, beginner, known level 1, burning strength level 1, red yin skill, physical strengthening level 1, red yin skill. There are a little more potential points. Garen smiled with satisfaction. The golden sword seat is indeed a good thing, and it's not in vain that I made a special trip to take the risk. Now that I can still have a little potential for a week, it is already very good. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 167. 6. Potential points for a secret martial skill, 1 point for low level, 2 points for intermediate level, and 5 points for advanced level. Separation can forcibly raise the level. Of course, this is based on knowing all the practice techniques. Because of this, Garen decided to introduce the flame claw first. It would be better if it could be integrated into the ruby palm. He now understood that the fusion and strengthening relationship between general martial arts and secret martial arts was related to the level at which he practiced this technique. Just like the giant elephant secret martial arts, he is at the highest level, so all the other techniques that can be integrated are integrated into it. Based on the giant elephant secret martial arts, it becomes a different strengthening effect. In other words, whichever skill he practices at a high level, that skill should be used as the main body, with other similar skills attached to it. Maybe some of them are also affected by the grade between the exercises, but this is not the main thing. With 6 attributes, the 2 secret weapons can be upgraded to the intermediate level. Just standing in the study room on the 2nd floor, Garen raised his hands. According to the flame claw exercise method, the muscles and joints of his palms continued to make subtle changes in postures. At the same time, in conjunction with the flow of energy and blood, he placed his hands on the lit kerosene on the table. Above the lamp flame, moving back and forth. The scorching flames immediately began to burn the skin of Garen's hands. 10 minutes later, all the skin on his hands was burned. Garen suddenly felt his palms go numb, and a stream of clear water flowed from his brain into his palms. His hands seemed to suddenly become different. Getting started. He quickly looked at the skill bar below his field of vision. Carnelian palm, beginner, known level 1, strengthen the scorching heat to the 1st level, red yin kung fu, strengthen the constitution to the 1st level, red yin kung fu, and strengthen the flame claw to the 1st level. His eyes focused on the flame claw, and a symbol with relevant information suddenly appeared behind it. The flame claws increase the flame resistance of the hands and strengthen the strength resistance of the hands in normal state. Strengthening the hands can produce a certain degree of heat damage. Garen whispered the explanation. After thinking for a moment, he looked at the 6 attributes on his potential. You don't have to think about improving the ruby palm. That guy Celine is very cunning and will definitely find out about my abnormality. Let's improve the others first. He hesitated for a moment, but his eyes fell on the flame claw. When his eyes stopped on this skill, his potential points jumped 3 times in a row, and 3 points of potential disappeared. Flame claw is also separated from the strengthening effect and becomes an independent secret weapon skill. Instead, the ruby palm and other secret weapons were all integrated into the flame claw. Fire claw, the 2nd level, 4 levels in total. Ruby palm strengthens 1 level, red yin kung strengthening level 1, physique strengthening, burning strengthening. A symbol appears behind the skill. There are more than 3 similar secret martial arts techniques, and the training methods conflict. Does the flame claw technique cover the flame flow hand and part of the ruby palm? Exercise conflict? Galen is slightly stunned. It is random and clear, and there may indeed be conflicts in exercise methods between different exercises. Cover. As soon as he confirmed this idea in his mind, the Qian Kung Fu in the skill bar immediately disappeared. Only the more advanced second-rate secret martial arts flame claws are left. A lot of strengthening effects in the skill bar were immediately simplified. Fire Claw, the second level, 4 levels in total, the flames are strengthened by 1 level, 3 levels in total, derived from the Red Jade Palm secret martial arts training method of Qian Gong. The body has reached its limit, and attributes can only be used to improve skills. Since the Flame Claw is the most comprehensive, its level exceeds that of the Giant Elephant secret martial arts. Garen directly shifted his focus to the Flame Claw. Next is the Golden Image skill. This hard Qigong is easy to practice, but it requires applying golden oil, a special secret recipe ghee. There is no such condition here. Garen just took note of it first and looked for opportunities later. The next step is to write down all the contents of the library that can be remembered, and then check them again. It was already afternoon by the time we came out of the secret arsenal. There were 2 apprentices waiting for him outside the door. Master Jialong, have you finished checking it? That's almost it? Thank you very much. Garen nodded. Please express your gratitude to Master Luther. Without saying anything more to the people in Angsha's sword, Garen went out directly, while Jin Huan's black car was waiting outside. This time, the relationship with the people from Angsha's sword is settled. Before getting on the plane, he went to visit Bio. This guy was covered in bandages and was lying on the bed unable to move. Public cemetery in the suburbs of Huaishan City. It was raining continuously, and black clouds spread across the sky. Deep in the cemetery, a group of people were standing in front of a white tombstone. Garen and Garcia stood in front of the tombstone, followed by Cynthia, Jack, and Fatty Bavini. All of them were dressed in black, the men wore black suits, and the women wore black skirts and trench coats. A group of people were surrounded by black-clad guards. 2 soldiers escorted a woman in black standing behind the crowd. What are you going to do? Garcia looked at Garen. According to the rules of the sect, those who rebel against the sect and kill brothers and sisters should be punished with death, Garen said calmly. Garcia looked back at Rosita, who was being held in custody, with a hint of complexity flashing in his eyes. Capital punishment. Any sect's capital punishment is an extremely bloody and cruel punishment. Generally it is not really used much. But now Garen is really going to be punished with the death penalty. You should also know what the death penalty of Bayun sect is. Garen looked calm. Peel the skin, pour honey water on it and let the ants bite it. Garcia nodded reluctantly. But Rosita is already. I know. Garen closed his eyes and said calmly. I knew she was dead. Rosita was behind, supported by 2 golden ring subordinates, standing stiff and motionless. From the day Garen left prison, she had committed suicide. All they have brought now are corpses. Let's do it. Allowing her to commit suicide is already the greatest tolerance. Garen did not hesitate at all. The 2 Jinhuan subordinates brought here are both professional criminal law experts and both are women. The cold drizzle fell on everyone. Garen stood motionless in front of the tombstone. He took out the black wood ring and gently turned it in his hand. The symbol of the golden ring has been worn on the lobe of his left ear. Watching Rosita being swallowed by ants, he suddenly felt a sense of peace that he had never felt before. Amidst the croaking sounds, several black crows were attracted to the corpse. They flew down on the corpse as if no one was watching, lowered their heads and began to peck at it. Garen and others ignored it. Now that the senior sister's matter has been resolved, the second senior brother and the elder are all dead, leaving only Garen and Garcia as disciples of the previous generation. The rest are all newcomers. It's time to arrange everything thoroughly, if you want to challenge the White Bird Holy Fist. After returning from the cemetery, Garen sat alone in the martial arts performance hall of the Bayun Martial Arts Hall. The surroundings were dark, with only the faint moonlight slanting in from the window, falling on the floor and reflecting the slightly damaged surface. He didn't know when he started, but since the battle that night, he had fallen in love with sitting alone and thinking about things. Ever since his intelligence attribute reached its peak, it has become easier for him to think of many things. My understanding of martial arts has also become much deeper. Teacher, are you there? Simon's voice came from the stairs. It seemed like there was more than one person footsteps. Come up if you need anything. Garen opened his eyes and said calmly. Soon, the footsteps of several people came from the stairs, and Simon walked up with a handsome young man with a gentle and calm temperament. Kei-Ling came up with a beautiful girl with a cold temperament. Kei-Ling and Simon were both former disciples of Jia Long. Both of them had no worries. They chose not to give up and persevered during the most difficult time of the Bayun section. Therefore, Garen directly turned the two of them into real disciples and taught them skills without hiding any secrets. So far, the two have reached a very strong level of martial arts. After a long period of training, they are almost as good as their third senior brother Garcia. Even among Star Ring Sect and Red Sand Sword, they can compare with most disciples below Nishi Star. This is the result of the large amount of resources tilted since the revival of the Bayun sect, and after Garen became a fighter, he has a clear grasp of the body's energy and blood. In addition, after all, while the two of them were practicing secret martial arts, they also continued to take the precious body tempering pills that Garen had taken, and their own qualifications were also good, which led to such great progress. Are you okay? Garen glanced at everyone. Simon, Kei-Ling and others were all wearing tight-fitting black training uniforms. Behind them were two teenagers, a boy and a girl, who were wearing white silk training uniforms and looked extremely respectful. Teacher, we are bringing our apprentice here for you to take a look, Simon replied carefully. The galleons in front of him were like beasts in the dark. Just sitting there gave people a slight sense of oppression. It's no better than before. If he had a carefree personality before, he could still talk easily. But now, since Garen defeated the ambush at the Demon Elephant Gate, his whole person has changed so much that it's so overwhelming that it's hard to breathe. This is the apprentice of you two. Garen was a little surprised. Although he heard the two mentioned it last time, he didn't ask carefully. Finally saw it this time. I've met Master. Two young men, a boy and a girl, said hello to Garen together. They were only 14 or 15 years old, and there was a hint of nobility in their temperament. Jelina is Mr. Bavini's niece, Kei-Ling explained. The girl quickly lowered her head to show respect. Yuan Rui is the second heir to the De Yaowen family, Simon quickly introduced. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 169. Master, I prefer martial arts to my family, the young man replied respectfully and softly. The De Yaowen family, Garen couldn't help but feel slightly moved. This is a very famous family, ranked among the top 10 in the entire Federation, and often appears in newspapers. The family was once the founding fathers of the country and was extremely powerful. It can be regarded as a behemoth entrenched in the south. Unexpectedly, people from this family also came to become his disciples. When did you enter Bayun Gate? Garen frowned. Simon was suddenly startled, knowing that he might have misunderstood, so he quickly explained. Teacher, Yuan Ruzi joined us when Kei-Ling and I were working together. It was after the battle between you and Andrila. But at that time, he was admitted as an ordinary student, and later I found that the qualifications were very good, so I brought it up, and then something happened and I became a disciple. Oh, Garen didn't expect it to be so early, and glanced at Yuan Ruzi. This young man's eyes were deep, but he had a deep and firm will. His eyes were sharp and undistracted. He was obviously a person with a strong purpose. With so many sects, is there any reason why you chose Bayun sect? he simply asked directly without hiding his suspicion. Yuen Ruzi was stunned for a moment, then returned to his natural state. Yes, Sister Feinstein and I are very good friends. It was she who introduced me to come here to learn martial arts. Feinstein Garen was stunned and immediately recalled that noble and naughty young lady. It would be normal if it was her. How is she now? It's okay, it's just that I'm locked up at home and can't go out, Yuen Ruzi replied softly. This young man seemed to have a soft and frail expression no matter what he said. His appearance was also exquisite, and his appearance was too handsome to be a boy's. If she didn't have Adam's apple, she would probably be regarded as a woman disguised as a man. After looking at Yuen Ruzi and Kailana, the girl was cold and the boy was soft. Both of them had similar determination in their eyes. I don't know if their apprenticeship represents more investment on behalf of the family's interests or more on behalf of their own wishes. The spirit is very good. If you work hard, you should be able to achieve certain achievements before the age of 20. It depends on whether you can persist. Garen nodded with satisfaction. In any case, these two people represent the complete surrender of the local forces, and the other represents the complete surrender of the local forces. Representing the power of the top external families, Bayun sect will not have any problems relying solely on these two people. Especially Yuen Ruzi, as one of the top 10 families in the Federation, he also came under the command of Bayun section. This was a recognition of the entire Bayun sect and his Galan. It just so happens that Master is here. I have a question. I wonder if I can ask Master to answer it. Yuen Ruzi bowed his head respectfully. What's the problem? Garen was in a good mood and nodded in agreement. It's about the key elements of martial arts. What is the most important thing for a warrior? What factors are the key to determine the warrior's continuous progress? Yuen Ruzi spoke straight to the core. Not only Galleon, but Simon and Kei Ling were also slightly surprised. The fact that this question could be asked meant that Yuen Ruzi's mind and intelligence were not generally mature. Garen looked at this beautiful young man carefully, and what he saw in his eyes was the strong will and persistence to move forward. No one spoke for a while in the martial arts hall, only the faint sound of breathing and heartbeat. Yuen Ruzi tried his best to keep looking at Garen, seemingly relaxed, but in fact, a huge pressure kept impacting his whole body, and every breath in his chest felt as heavy as a heavy burden. Sweat slowly seeped out from his temples and slid down the corners of his face. He once faced his uncle, a lieutenant general, face to face and experienced the pressure of power. But it wasn't as scary as it is now. I have also faced the patriarch, who is a member of the parliament, and it is not so heavy. Unlike them, when facing Grandmaster Garen, there was pressure and a terrifying sense of threat. The hair on Yuen Ruzi's body stood on end, as if there was an abyss in front of him, and he would fall if he tilted his body. Your family doesn't support you coming here to become a disciple, right? Garen suddenly said. Yuen Ruzi was startled and bit his lower lip. Yes, they strongly objected. I escaped secretly. This, Simon and Kei Ling were both slightly shocked. Standing behind Yuen Ruzi is a behemoth who is one of the 10 major families in the Federation. It is not an ordinary family power. Didn't you say that they agreed to your coming out? Simon was a little anxious. I'm sorry, teacher. Yuen Ruzi lowered his head helplessly and apologized. I was willful. In fact, he didn't really intend to join the Bayun section, he just wanted to have fun and relax, but he didn't expect to be. Simon took a fancy to it, and after a casual chat, the two of them unexpectedly became interested in each other. Simon even promoted him as his disciple without saying anything. Anyway, he didn't know much about the importance of the relationship between apprentice and master in the secret martial arts world. Yuen Ruzi didn't attach much importance to this relationship. The two of them started the process of teaching Bayanman giant elephant secret martial arts in a daze. By the time Yuen Ruzi gradually realized something was wrong, it was already too late. After learning many secret martial arts experiences and techniques from Bayun sect and taking the body tempering pills, it was no longer possible for him to break away from this relationship. When he and Simon were planning to break away from each other, Garen's reputation outside also spread to the local area. The master-disciple relationship between the two has also become a situation where it is difficult to get off. Thinking of this, Ruzi raised his head and looked at Simon. Both of them felt extremely speechless. Now Ruzi's departure would be tantamount to betraying the section. Rosita's ending has frightened Simon. Even Ruzi, who had just learned about it, quickly asked to be brought over to see Garen. Garen smiled, but seemed unconcerned. As for your question, I can tell you my answer. However, every real martial artist will have an answer of his own. Master, please speak. Ruzi recovered his thoughts and said seriously. For a warrior, I think there are two most important factors, Garen said slowly, slowing down his tone. First, talent. It is the so-called physical talent. The better the talent, the faster you can start practicing martial arts, and the more time you can save, so that you can enter a higher level in the future. Several people nodded to express their understanding. Secondly, it's the spirit. Garen stretched out a finger for emphasis. Whether you are a general martial arts enthusiast, a martial artist, or even a fighter, the spirit is very important, Garen said with emotion. For example, take the gangsters who are fighting on the street. Generally, before a fight, if you are "I'm so scared," are they all going to end in defeat? Looking at a few people, they seem to understand but not understand. He went on to explain. Two ordinary people fighting have the same strong physique and the same power and speed. If one party is mentally weak, he will lack self-confidence and be in a defensive and evasive position. If the other party is mentally strong, he will continue to take the initiative. In this way, as long as unless there is any big surprise, the victor will be the one with the strongest spirit. I kind of understand. Ruzi frowned slightly. Garen glanced at the girl Kailana, who was also somewhat understanding. Both children had good understanding. Kailing also clearly understood. Only Simon scratched his head and didn't know why. What about the martial artist level? Ruzi asked. What the martial artist pursues is to condense one's own courage, challenge the extreme peak of the human body, and reach the fighter level, Garen explained calmly. And spirit is the product of the fusion of spirit and strength. Martial arts that contain spirit have a very strong personal style. The functions are also different. Some spirit oppresses the enemy. Some spirit can disrupt the enemy's spirit. Of course I haven't seen many fighters, and I don't know much about them either. Then what's the importance of spirit for the fighter level? Ruzi continued to ask. It's too early for you to ask this question. Garen looked at Ruzi, who was sitting in front of him. This young man, who was not yet 15 years old, could talk without any pressure from himself. He was indeed a very good prospect. But I can also tell you, Garen said gently with appreciation. If you have a weak spirit, you will not respond quickly to the opponent's attacks and various changes. If you have a weak spirit, you will fall into hesitation when faced with choices. If you make one wrong step, you will continue to fall into hesitation about your own choices, and the response will be difficult. It's getting sluggish. No matter how strong it is, it will decline significantly. He added, if the mental will is not strong enough, and doubts and waverings occur, the response will not be fast enough, and there may be hesitation. Many times, the opportunity is only a moment, and losing it means defeat. This is the importance of spirit and even courage. So many masters will use their courage to suppress the opponent before fighting. If they are suppressed by the opponent, the chance of winning will be very low. Garen looked at Ruzi's clear look and continued, some masters who lack courage will use other ways to attack opponents. For example, conspiracy tactics, verbal stimulation, etc. Understood? Ruzi nodded, that is to say, if the difference in strength is not too big, if the spirit is suppressed, then the strength cannot be used, and there is a high possibility of losing. So how do you condense your spirit and strengthen your spirit? This depends on you personally. There are too many ways to strengthen your spirit, and the types vary. What you need to do is find a way that suits you. Galen did not point out directly. Looking at the four thoughtful people in front of him, a slight smile appeared on his face. From now on, Simon and Kei-Ling will be mainly responsible for managing Baiun section. If you have any questions, let's ask them together today. Kei-Ling Saman and Kei-Ling Saman immediately looked at each other and stood up at the same time. Please ask the teacher to correct me. The two slowly formed the Baiun gate starting position. Yuan Ruzi and Kailana stood up and pushed back. Come together, let me see what progress you have made. Garen sat cross-legged and remained motionless. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 170. After correcting some of Kei-Ling and Simon's mistakes, Garen also began to arrange the Baiun gate after he left. His sister's exams were over long ago. Jia Long went back to take a look at his family and asked about his sister's exam results. Ying'er performed normally. She didn't do well in one subject, but she performed superbly in the other subject, which just complemented each other. Ying'er plans to enroll in Shenyang University, which is the direct university of Shenyang College. With the influence of Jinhuan, Huaishan and other surrounding counties and cities are managed like iron barrels. What Jinhuan lacks is high-end power. In terms of power, it is really not afraid of any power. Even Holy Eagle University can take care of my sister a little. Arranged the property management of Baiun sect and entrusted most of the property to the second senior brother Garcia for supervision. Garen also slightly modified some inappropriate aspects of the giant elephant secret martial arts, and modified them according to the better methods in other secret martial arts that he remembered and understood. Although he would not be able to reach the level of his current mutant secret martial arts after practicing to the highest level. But it is much better than the original third-rate secret martial arts. It has almost reached the level of a second-rate secret martial artist, Hong Yuzhang. Then let Kei-Ling, as a woman, test Ying'er if she has the chance to see if she is willing to learn secret martial arts and join Baiun clan. Ying'er's talent in secret martial arts is average, but her understanding of archery is pretty good. She doesn't want to waste time practicing secret martial arts at all. Her boxing and kick skills are sufficient for self-defense, but if she wants to improve, she must focus on martial arts training as the main part of her life. This is not what she wants. After all, not everyone has the same abnormal talents and abilities as Garen. A subject, a path, only by concentrating all our efforts can we go further. A stronger secret weapon means that you need to spend more time every day to maintain your condition. Otherwise, it is like sailing against the current. If you do not advance, you will retreat. The adaptability of the human body will make any fighter forget his previous training. Only Galleons are different. The innate ability made his body's amnesia completely disappear, and also completely solidified his physical quality, so that there would be no fluctuations. In other words, he would not be in a low state or deteriorate in quality. But there will also be no super-level performance. Because whether it is a regression or a super-level, it is all determined by the body's adaptability. If you are decadent and having fun, your body will instinctively think that it does not need the physical fitness that comes from martial arts training. It will reduce the nutrient supply and gradually degrade. Under high-pressure stimulation, the body will instinctively think that it needs stronger strength in order to adapt to and relieve external threats and pressures. This is Darwin's theory of evolution and the instinct of living things. Garen has always understood this truth. Therefore, his innate ability is his biggest secret and no one is allowed to touch it. Since the attributes of his superpowers have become stronger and stronger, He has gradually stopped improving his body due to exercise, as if he has always been frozen in a stable state. Everything in the world has gains and losses. He has known this for a long time. The superpower disables his forgetting mechanism. While he continues to grow stronger, he also loses his protective instinct to naturally adapt to the outside world. He has now gradually understood that the source of the superpower comes from his worldview and countless knowledge when he was on Earth. The subconscious mind uses this knowledge to select the most suitable way to manifest the superpower. It becomes this kind of status bar similar to system games. After finishing the aftermath, he left Huaishan in the name of going to university and got on the direct train to Yinjia City, intending to transfer from there to Yunquishan Waterfall. The situation between the Federation and Weissman has become increasingly tense, and some minor frictions have begun at the border. The daily newspapers are filled with wars of words from both sides. While riding the train, you can occasionally see the shadow of federal soldiers being mobilized from various places for training exercises. The general trains in the Federation are not very developed and do not have sleeper berths. Only dedicated special trains have this service. The last few times Garin took ordinary trains, this time he took advantage of the power of the Golden Circle and took a special train. The whole train only had 5 carriages and was only available for a dozen people to rest. There are free newspapers and periodicals on dietary impurities in the carriage. As a dedicated line, all other trains must give way and wait for it. So it was quite fast, and it only took more than a day to reach Yinjia City. By this time, his reputation had completely spread throughout the south, and even people in the north had heard of it. In the battle at the Red Sand Sword Gate headquarters, the siege of the Black Label Society of the Demon Elephant Gate was independently defeated, and Weissman's hunting team even participated. Compared to the battle with Andrilla, this time was far more dangerous than the last time. After getting off the train, Galen took Cynthia and Jack, and under the protection of the train police, entered the special passage and exited the station through a clean path. The sky is still a little gray, not completely bright. On the busy street outside the station, several horse-drawn carriages and cars were parked. The door of a silver-white car in the middle was open, and a young girl was holding the door with a smile. The girl is wearing a purple dress and black crystal earrings, looking exquisite and elegant. "Hey, teacher, long time no see." Garin walked out of the passage and saw the girl waving and smiling at him for the first time. "Arisai, why are you here?" Sulin's sister Irisi took the initiative to greet him with a smile, and her arms naturally held Garin's arms. "Why can't I come? Let's go to my place to have a rest first. When you get to Yinjia City, you have to let me entertain you." I opened a large private room in Rose Whisper. "There are many sisters who want to meet you, master." "Woolen cloth. Stop making trouble, I have something else to do. I can't stay here for long." This time Garin was slightly helpless. "But my friends and best buddies all hope that you can be our guests." "Master, just promise." Zixi Irisi immediately squeezed her chest slightly on Garin's arm, and at the same time used coquettish tactics, without any trace of her original aristocratic character. The elegance of the eldest lady in the family. "I really have something to do. Let's do it next time. Say hello to your father for me." Garin still refused decisively. The battle with Whitebird Holy Fist Palasha was a major event that he had been looking forward to for a long time. Even now, he felt a little impatient and didn't want to get involved in any other unrelated matters. But Irisi's desire to introduce herself to her circle of friends probably wasn't just a small thought. There must be other reasons for her to beg and act coquettishly. Garin thought for a moment. "So be it, Winhadan." A man in a black suit stepped forward from behind. "Sir, what are your orders?" "If Irisi needs any help, please come with her." Garin was not polite in giving instructions to his subordinates who were assigned these golden rings. "Leave it to my lord." Winhadan smiled gently. "Miss Irisi, there is no need to ask your lord for the Felicia sisters matter. Your brother can handle it on his own. You also know, Iris was slightly shuddered, and immediately began to look squarely at this inconspicuous-looking black-haired young man. She herself formed a sisterhood with some like-minded sisters, which has a certain influence in the Elisa province, but recently she got into trouble with another small circle of prince-sealings and princesses. This time I came here with the intention of dragging Garen over to show his face, so as to take advantage of the situation and suppress the opponent's arrogance. After all, she also learned from her father that Garon's influence is not that strong now. The country was also shocked after learning about Garon's victory. This is simply a ferocious beast in human form. The specially made firearms of the Wiseman hunting team are actually very difficult to seriously injure him, which is stronger than the armor of a tank. If someone offends Garen, there is no way to escape and fight back without a cannon. Escape early was the only option. Well, that's okay. Anyway, it's enough to borrow the master's signature. I suddenly smiled again. What's going on? Garen was slightly curious. The black-haired young man Wenhattan respectfully explained the situation to him. The Felicia sisters held an influential underground fighting competition in Music City, gathering a group of underground boxers to fight to the death with boxers from other areas, and at the same time, gambling to make huge profits. However, recently a foreign organization came from another area and brought a few strong boxers to challenge the situation. The boxers of the sisterhood were defeated one after another, and they were almost at the end of their rope. Only then did Iris plan to come over and borrow Galleon's sign to prevent the other party from overpressing. Underground boxer? Is he strong? Garen asked with interest. The composition is very mixed. People with some martial arts background, descendants of run-down martial arts families, and even martial artists from some schools who live in embarrassment. There are all kinds of people. Some fighters may have participated in such competitions before they became famous. Train yourself, Wenhattan explained in a low voice. The three of them stood in front of the car door and did not get in. Garen held the car door and paused for a moment. Leo should be nearby, right? How is the situation? He looked at Cynthia behind him. Cynthia had been chewing bubble gum and was blowing bubbles with a relaxed look on her face. Upon hearing the question, she quickly sucked back the white bubbles. It's not bad. He struck hard. The other party resisted fiercely and was only slightly injured. Garen nodded with satisfaction. In order to completely separate from his previous relationship, boxing champion Leo launched a heavy sneak attack on another boxing champion from the Black Label Club, seriously injuring him in the back. The only remaining intact boxer fought off Leo with his seriously injured companion, leaving him slightly injured. Have you figured out their whereabouts? Yes, we are tracking, but there are people on the other side blocking us. The boxing champion of the Black Label Club is also a master of the martial arts level. He is also looking forward to Garen's challenge to the White Bird Holy Fist. This time, Leo was caught off guard. It was a big loss. This can also be regarded as Leo's vote for Garen. That guy was an idealistic fanatic who was crazy enough to stop at nothing. To achieve the goal, you can do whatever it takes and never give up. Let's go and take a look. Once it's settled, let Leo find someone to solve the matter of Iris. Garen also plans to take advantage of the opportunity to deal with the Black Label Society's forces, and he still remembers the way he blocked the White Cloud sect when they first took action. What are you talking about? Iris asked doubtfully. Is this Leo very powerful? There are so many people calling Leo's name these days, no wonder she doesn't know much about it. Don't worry, someone will be here soon to help you solve your trouble. Garen smiled. Let's go, lend us the car for the time being, and you drive, Jack. No problem. Jack skillfully opened the driver's door. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 171. In the vast wilderness of mountains and forests between Yinjia City and Weimaran City. The golden sunset in the afternoon is filled with traces of red, dyeing all the mountains, forests, and hills into a golden red. On the top of a hill, surrounded by a large number of pine trees, stands a white building. The building looks like a lot of independent small squares and rectangular blocks close together, covered with a needle-like gray-green spire. From an exit on the side of the building complex, two sweaty men in black, supporting each other, walked out, looking around nervously, as if they were wary of something. Both were blonde, one male and one female. The man's face was ugly, and his mouth was tilted to the upper right, which looked extremely weird. The woman was beautiful, but her face was pale, and her blonde hair was wet with sweat and stuck to her forehead. The two of them walked quickly down the stone steps behind the monastery. "Hold on. That guy can't find us, he should have left." The man helped the woman down the mountain carefully and quickly. "Leo, this traitor. I'm sorry, Manila, if I hadn't dragged you down, you wouldn't have been injured by that guy," the blonde woman said with a sad expression. "It doesn't matter, this is of my own free will." The ugly man Manila didn't hesitate at all. A touch of emotion suddenly flashed across the woman's face. Tisk tisk tisk. It's such a touching scene. On the stone steps behind, a strong man dressed in black also came down. The man has a handsome face, a hooked nose, blue-black eyes, and a mocking smile. Leo, Manila looked furious, staring at the man behind him, and at the same time, he turned his body and immediately blocked the woman behind him. "We are both boxing champions of the Black Label Club. I can't think of any reason for you to betray us. Why would you do this?" "Why?" Leo sneered. "There is an old saying in the East, summer insects cannot speak of ice. Do you understand what it means?" There was a trace of fanatical distortion on his face. "I fight for the dream I pursue. The justice in my heart and the will in my heart are the criteria for all my actions. We are both boxing champions and fighters. Seeing that you are always so naive, I have long been. I can't bear it anymore." His right hand was hanging down, with a black leather glove on his fist, and the joints were all covered with silver-white metal pieces, like scale-like metal pieces. With a slight stroke, the clear whistle of an eagle suddenly filled the air. "Manila, encore, for the dream in my heart." Leo stretched out his hands and made fists. "Please die here. Do you think you can leave us two alone?" The blonde woman and Kay stood up firmly. "Leo, you also know that if we try our best, you will also be seriously injured or even die." She paused after a moment. He said, "I don't know what your purpose is, but you have forced us to this point. Your purpose has almost been achieved, right? There is no need for us to continue to fight and lose both sides. Both sides suffer." Leo's expression became even more sarcastic. "No, no, no, that ending won't happen. Don't you understand? In front of adults, all struggles are meaningless." Manila and Ankh were startled for a moment, and turned around slowly. On the steps below, a tall figure was standing there at some point, watching them with a calm expression. Galen. A chill rose in the hearts of both of them. The strongest master in the southern secret martial arts world. The invincible strongman second only to Palasha. Looking at Garen's calm figure, an invisible and huge sense of oppression completely enveloped the two of them like a shadow. Garen raised his head upwards and stared at the two boxing champions of the Black Label Club, completely blocking the path downwards. As the now recognized overlord of the secret martial arts world, Garen's appearance was a serious impact on the two of them. He stood there, his whole body filled with an indescribable huge aura, a strong aura that was so thick that it was almost solidified. Like a huge mountain, even standing on the steps below gives people the illusion that they can only look up. "The Black Label Association is over." Manila's face turned pale. The moment Garen appeared, he understood that all this had already come to an end. When Black Label attacked Bayun Gate, they should have thought that sooner or later they would be retaliated against. The blonde woman smiled miserably. "Let Manila go, I will ask my mother to transfer everything in the Black Label Society to Bayanman. Garen shook his head slowly. You are not qualified to negotiate terms with me. Haven't you noticed yet? The Federation has become increasingly chaotic. A new era is coming. In the conflict between Wiseman and the Federation has always been at a disadvantage. He stared at the two of them calmly. The war is about to break out. The stronger the power an individual has, the safer he will be in the war situation. Boxing champion Ankh, your father also saw this. So the Black Label Association was established. So the Southern Star Ring Gate Angsha the Swords all want to unify their power. For a while, everyone fell into silence and stopped talking. The two people who were blocked almost had the idea of fighting to the death. The golden red light in the afternoon fell from above the steps, through the leaves and branches, and fell on Galen. His eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the two Black Label boxing champions leaning against each other. Killing you will do me no good. The two of them suddenly understood a little bit of the meaning and looked slightly relaxed. We tell you the news about the fighter who injured Master Fei. At the same time, Black Label will be willing to join Lord Garen. An old man's voice came from behind Garen. A white-haired old woman slowly walked up with several masked men with cold expressions. All the people who participated in that operation will be handed over, the old woman said in a low voice. This is the person Garen is waiting for, the real mastermind behind the Black Label Association, Vivian Lida, the mother of the boxing champion Ankh. Go back and hand over the matter. That's the end of the matter. Garen looked calm and turned around to look at the old woman below. The power of the Black Label Society was no longer a threat after the Battle of Red Sand Sword. As for the Demon Elephant sect, they still haven't found a breakthrough. Their powers are so independent that it's hard to trace them from the bottom up. Looking at the old woman Vivian Lida, Garen said no more and walked slowly down the stone steps. Boxing champion Leo followed closely behind him, and the two of them gradually disappeared from the long winding stone steps. Vivian Lida and the two boxing champions looked at their backs in a daze. They understand that Garen will definitely decide whether to take action based on their performance. In fact, from the moment Garen appears, the Black Label Club will have no meaning regardless of whether the boxing champion is intact or not. What's more, now he has seriously injured a boxing champion. It was already past 9 o'clock in the evening when we arrived in Weimar. After the Black Label Association officially saw the general trend established by Garan through force, it also announced that it was negotiating with the people of Bayun sect to merge and become dependents. But the negotiation cannot be concluded in a day or two. While they are delaying, they are also waiting for the outcome of the battle between Garen and the White Bird Holy Fist. All of Garen's forces are based on absolute power. If something goes wrong in the fight with the White Bird Holy Fist, everything will disappear. Not just them, all the forces' attention was focused on Garen and Palasha. A battle between the two will determine whether the peak of the old and new generations can be replaced. Groups of martial artists from various sects came to the Nantian Holy Fist sect, and some unwelcome martial artists also gathered secretly. Star Ring sect, Red Sand Sword, Northern Martial Arts Alliance, and many martial arts schools that Garen had never heard of came from all directions. Some wanted to see what a higher martial arts realm was like, and some wanted more. Has ulterior motives. The government sent troops to maintain order, but there were still fights, and the whole city of Weimar was in chaos. And just when there were more and more people in Weimar. On a small road leading from Weimar to the Skylark Mountains, several men in white had quietly led Garen and Leo towards the depths of the Skylark Mountains. The sky is dim and bright. On the edge of a large green flat lake, 3 men in white and 4 gallons in black were walking quickly along the shore of the lake. Like a small row of black and white ants beside a green mirror. There are many yellow-green plants and small trees growing beside the lake. Some of their upper bodies are bent towards the lake, and some of their leaves and branches are also thrust into the water. Garen stepped on the slightly moist yellow mud and followed behind the man in white. Look up to the lake on the right. On the right front of the lake, a dark green pier extends out of the lake, which is covered with dense green trees. From a distance, it looks like a large ball of green thread extending from the shore and floating on the lake. Garen looked away and moved his neck slightly. A black and red mosquito the size of a thumb suddenly flew out from the collar. The mosquito struggled a few times, then fell from the air to the ground and was crushed by Garen's foot. Except for him and Leo, the people in white in front, as well as Cynthia and Jack, were all dressed in thick, fully enclosed clothing, with some exposed skin covered tightly. A man in white looked back and saw the scene, and his eyes suddenly showed a dignified look. Ouch! Suddenly, a low roar came from the river beach ahead. A black bear stood on the bank of the river, and two small black bears rolled and played in the shallow water of the lake, seemingly learning to catch fish. The black bear turned its head and stared at the group of people. It slowly moved its body with its four thick paws and faced the people head-on, showing a warning. The two little bears also stopped playing and looked at Garen and his group curiously. The taller one among the men in white stood up, took out a small bottle in his hand, and gently unscrewed the cap. The black bear seemed to smell something, and immediately shrank its body, roared low, and hurriedly left the lake with the two cubs and went into the forest. "Let's go," the man in white whispered. Galen and others followed closely behind. "It's coming soon, please take that thing out and cover your mouth and nose, and then be patient," the man in white added immediately. Garen and the others didn't reply. They all took out a small white wooden bottle from their pockets and put it under their noses. A faint smell of grass suddenly filled the team.